Hi, I'm Beth. I'm the founder of Telling Yarns, a British wool brand focused on hand-dyed colours which have nuances and iridescence and sit somewhere in the mid-colours. I am based in Bedfordshire in England. You join me on a very snowy day. I'm looking out across the farmyard where there is snow piled up, not very high if you're in Canada, but very high if you are from here, which I am, and it is still coming down thick and fast. And I've actually dropped the kids at school this morning in that snow, very excitedly, running around with snowballs, and I'm sure they're soaking wet and soggy sat in class now. So great start to the day. We get snow days probably once or twice in the whole year, and then a snow day here is like, I don't know, an inch of snow is a huge deal, as you will know if you are from the UK, particularly further down south we do not get a lot of snow, so it's all very exciting here, and it's lovely and bright and light. And I was due to be doing a call with a fellow yarn industry enthusiast who has their own podcast, but something's come up and we've had to postpone till next week. So I thought, given I was all ready for that, and we have the beautiful white snowy light, and I've sorted out some other lighting, and I've got all this knitting and yarn goodness behind me, I thought I would just jump on and actually catch up with you guys, because it's been so long and I've been meaning to do it for ages. So I apologise for the long delay. Finding the time to fit these in, it's not always as simple as you would imagine it would be. So what have I been doing since I last spoke to you? Telling Yarns has gone through quite a big evolution since then, I would say. I've found myself now probably exactly where I was hoping and dreaming of being when I first started Telling Yarns. I started dreaming up Telling Yarns in 2019, and I think this jumper that I'm knitting pretty much sums it all up. This is the Metropolis jumper pattern by Tanis Lavallee, I think you pronounce it. She's from Tanis Fibre Arts in Canada, and it's a chunky weight knit that I have chosen to use 3 strands of my new 4-ply fingering weight yarn, held all together, all 3 throughout, to knit this a chunky weight. I think I was actually going to check my gauge today. I think in reality I'm probably at an Aran weight, not a chunky weight, because I've knit the size 4 thinking it would be kind of baggy-ish, and it's probably more fitted than I was expecting. It fits really nicely, so I'm completely happy with it. But I think probably my gauge is smaller, but I didn't check, I'll be honest. I didn't check because I don't think it really matters actually with this knit, because I was knitting I was knitting a size that I thought was going to give me, I think it was going to give me maybe 5 inches of positive ease, or 4. So I wasn't too worried about it. And what I've done is you pick up the collar afterwards. So you start at the collar and knit down. So it's top down raglan shaping, right down through to a chunky rib. In the pattern, the rib is really large, but Tanis actually knit a version of this that looks vaguely similar to this, using all odds and ends of yarn and mohair held together and changing colour all through. And ever since I saw it, I've been totally in love with it, and just really, really, really wanted one that showed off Telling Yarns colourways. So I have picked out, I kind of was a little bit dictated to by which colourways I had already wound up, because I tried not to open too many fresh skeins because that feels a little bit sacrilegious. So I started with the natural up the top here. This is, so to fill you in, this is where I am headed colourways wise. This is where I've always been hoping to be, but also a big part of what I wanted to do was have a British wool, 100% British yarn available from farm to needle that I can trace at every step as being 100% British. So it's farmed, all farmed here in the UK. It is a combination of a number of different British breeds that I felt represented my perfect yarn. So I wanted something, it had to be soft because I wanted to replace all my other yarns that I had, and I didn't want people to feel that I had pushed them out of my sort of out of the scope of what I was offering by suddenly coming in with a mega rustic sort of crispy yarn. So I wanted it to be soft, so I went for loads of blue face Leicester, so it's 50% blue face Leicester. I wanted it to be bouncy, durable, and a little bit fluffy with that halo. Hopefully the camera's catching that. So I went for a mix of 30% Romney and 15% Massam. So between those three, the BFL, the Romney and the Massam, you get softness, you get durability, you get a bit of fluff, you get a bit of bounce. And because it's a British wool, it is a durable and reliable wool anyway. And then I needed something that had a little bit of heather in it, a little bit of heathering, to really give the depth of colours that I am always working towards. So this is one of my favourite colourways, Moon Dancer. And in order to really show off that kind of iridescent colour spectrum where you're catching so many different colours, but when knit up you're getting a kind of cohesive tonal, I needed the heathering that a little bit of dark yarn, a little bit of dark fibre provides. So it's got 5% Svartbliss, which is still farmed in the UK, but it's originally, I believe it's is it a Swiss breed originally? But anyway, they're little dark, almost black sheep with these sort of white stripes around where their socks would be. So I ended up going to John Arbon, who I was already working with quite a bit, because I wanted a family feel. I wanted people who knit, crochet, weave, spin, craft. I wanted them to be experiencing I wanted them to be milling my yarn because they experience what it's like to use it in the ways that I'm hoping, or I'm expecting people to use it. I've just seen our organic local farm food delivery arrive, so I'm just going to quickly go and receive that and then I'll be right back. 2 seconds. Sorry about that. We get this local, well, it's a large company in the UK called Riverford, who deliver food from local farms, or as local as they can, to you. And we get all whatever's seasonal in our area delivered each week, and eggs and milk, and this week some hot cross buns as well because it's almost Easter. So anyway, yes, back to what I was talking about, although that is kind of relevant, supporting British farmers at the right price. So I had the yarn spun by John Arbon, who are amazing. They're a fantastic partner to work with. They believe in the things that I believe in, and they have the kind of work style that I want to be involved in. I want something that's relaxed and joyful and creative. I don't want anything too industrialized or overtly commercial. I just want to enjoy it. This is a real passion project for me, telling yarns, and I want to be enjoying it in that. So working with John Arbon is perfect because the team there, Helena and Sonia and everyone else, are just fantastic. So I ended up getting this exact same fibre blend spun in the DK, which is Steadfast, and in a fingering 4-ply weight, which is Resolute. The fingering weight is actually 3 plies twisted together. So although it's in this country often known as a 4-ply, it is 3 plies. It's 400 meters to 100 grams. So I tried to choose a very standard length and weight so that it would be really easy to use in a lot of the patterns that we see being released through Ravelry, and that we can get through designers' websites and things. I wanted to be able to easily use it for any of those patterns, so that was the Resolute. And then the Steadfast, the DK weight, is 232 meters to 100 grams, which is a sort of very kind of standard DK. If anything, it's a light DK, so it means you get a lot of you get more bang for your buck kind of thing. So I couldn't be happier with this. The first thing I knit in it was the Northdale by Gudrun Johnston, also known as the Shetland Trader. That's this beautiful Fair Isle, and in her pattern she did 2 versions in the actual pattern, and both have fairly high contrast and have more saturated or darker colours. I chose to go for a classically subtle contrast and look feel, because I realise what it is that I'm inspired by. It's Claude Monet and all those kind of beauty. I went to this amazing exhibition of his through the firm that I work for. We went with one of the banks to the National Portrait Gallery, and they had this sort of closed exhibition of his works that weren't out in the public eye. They were owned by private collectors, and it was amazing. And there were so many beautiful paintings from where he's looking out maybe over London or things like that, and they're really like capturing every glimmering middle colour in pastels and sort of chalky colours and things like that. And I realised that's what I've been going for all this time. It was that inspiration. So I kind of went with the style that I like to dye in for the colours that I chose as well. So it's subtle. So there's 3 colours in total. The background colour, the main colour throughout, is the natural yarn, but in the Resolute base. This is the fingering weight yarn. Then the first contrast colour is Caraxis, which often at shows looks like a grey because you need natural light on it, but it's actually a really soft kind of periwinkle blue. If you think of those Palmer violets, I don't know whether you've seen those, the Palmer violet sweets I used to have when I was little. It's that kind of really soft colour, and it's got lots of flecks of different colours in it that gives it a rusty, warm, soft feel. Then the third colour I chose as the second contrast colour is called Sea Smoke, and it's got lots of different colours in it. It's up there to the right hand side, lots of browns and neutrals and a little bit of the same kind of blue periwinkle colour. So it was Caraxis. A lot of these colourways at the moment are named after dragons from House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones, what would you call it, prequel. And this is the Sea Smoke. So it's got basically all of the natural neutral colours in there. And then I held it with the plain Resolute. That's Steadfast, but you know what I mean, it's the same colours. So I love that. I wear it all the time. It was such a fun knit. It's a raglan construction, as you can see, which I find fits me really well. You knit it from the bottom up, then you knit the sleeves from the bottom up, and then you join it all together and knit the raglan yoke. Finally, you do a very tiny steek, like that long, so that you can do some short row shaping up the back of the neck and bring the neck up. As you can see, it's higher than the front. Then you cut the steek and sew it in just here before you pick up for the, do you do it before you pick up for the collar? I think you do. And it fits so nicely. The sleeves were actually long enough for me without me adjusting them. So I think probably they would be a bit too long for some people. So that would be worth checking and keeping an eye on throughout. It was designed to have negative ease because I think it's an older pattern from when people tended to wear things with more negative ease than positive ease. That tends not to be the case so much now. So I chose to actually knit mine. If anything, it's got an inch or so of positive ease, but it's fairly comfortably fitted throughout. I'm just so pleased with it. It's nice and cozy because it's got the colour work all over it. It almost ends up being a very light DK weight when you're wearing it because you've got the 2 strands throughout. It's also a really small, sorry, I shouldn't have put it down yet. It's also a really small pattern repeat. So this square here is the pattern repeat through the whole thing. So you get to know it really well. You're never going more than, I think, 3 stitches in one colour. And then you get a round in each of those pattern repeats where you do all the natural colour. And it just gives it a chance to, gives you a little break from the colour work. But because it's such a repetitive pattern, I found it really, what's the word, meditative and calming and peaceful. I really enjoyed it. I lengthened the yoke slightly on mine, so I actually picked up for all of the stitches slightly ahead of when it told you to in the pattern, so that I ended up with a slightly longer yoke, just because I'm tall. I thought it might be interesting for you to see the inside. People always, knitters, we always like to see the inside. When I'm at shows, quite often people will sort of flick the bottom of the sweater up so that they get the jumper up, so that they can see how neat your back sides are on the colour work. So it's just, you can see I've not had to catch a single float because you're doing such small colour blocks. Just really neat, really easy to do, super wearable, particularly in, I think probably particularly in the colours I chose, super wearable, because it doesn't really have too much of an impact. It's like a gentle overall patterning, so it's really easy to put it with anything. Okay, I'll put that back on there because I've got an empty shelf at the bottom there. So I went to Unravel Festival in Farnham. That was the last weekend of February. It was 2 weeks ago now, and then I've got East Anglia Yarn Festival in Norfolk next weekend in Norwich, and I dyed up so much of these 2 bases, so much of this yarn to take to Unravel Festival, and I just had the most successful show I've ever had. I don't know whether it was because it was a lot busier at the show. I also had these amazing new stands built that I've been designing for probably 18 months, and I finally committed and had them built. So I had these gorgeous new pegboard stands built, and it really showcased the yarn, I think, probably to its potential. Although it's not the lightest of rooms, the Great Hall at Unravel, but yeah, I sold so much that when I was dyeing up for it, I was like, oh well, you know, it doesn't matter that I've done way too much yarn for the show because I've got East Anglia coming up, so I'm kind of prepping for both in one go, and then I'll have hardly anything to do between the 2 shows. Well, I came back with not a lot of yarn and have had to dye almost everything that you see behind me. I've dyed in the last 2 weeks in prep for East Anglia Yarn Festival, and I've actually run out of the Resolute base. It's not a problem because John Arbon have been spinning it this week. I've got 70 kilos of it coming, of Resolute coming, I think next week, and another 30 kilos of Steadfast to go with the 30 kilos I've already got here. So I'm not worried, but I've actually run out of yarn. That's how much I like how well Unravel went. So yeah. Anyway, the other patterns I've got here with me were actually designed in this yarn, which is super exciting. I can't tell you, so this one that I'm wearing here is called, which one? So this is Evolving, and this one here is called Time. They're both designed by Rachel Illsley from Unwind Knitwear. She's a UK designer based up north, and I've met her a couple of times at Unravel Festival. Really, really lovely, amazing to work with, super professional and kind, and a brilliant collaborator. I was really fortunate because I had kind of pre-booked with her to work on this colour work sweater, and then she liked the yarn so much that she ended up designing Evolving in it as well. She designed it in the natural shade, and I decided whatever she did I would do kind of the opposite to showcase how different a jumper can look depending on how far across the spectrum you go, you know, dark or light. So she designed Evolving in natural, so I knit mine in Monstrous, which is one of my darkest colours. You can see it's an off black dark grey with shades of greens and pinks and warmth and yeah, all kinds of stuff. Then Rachel designed Time in this colourway, Monstrous, with the natural colourway as the contrast colour. Did I just say the right thing then? I feel like I said contrast twice. So she designed it with Monstrous, this dark grey, as the main colour and the natural as the contrast. So I went with a light colour and of course a subtle contrast. As always, at some point I've got to knit something with a bold contrast, but it just doesn't seem to be my way. So this is a beautiful colourwork pattern, knit from the top down with the colourwork yoke with a load of short row shaping up here to bring the back up and drop the neck down. The colourwork goes right down the sleeves to just above the elbow. I knit mine in Resolute again, and it's the colourway Storm Cloud is the main colour, which is a real, I was kind of going for a kind of stone pebbly neutral, but I wanted obviously to enjoy lots of different colours in it at the same time, because that's what I really enjoy in hand dyed yarns. Then the contrast colour is a deep pinky burgundy colour, a rouge, no, maybe not, more pinky than that, called Morning. In fact, I've got it behind me here. That was a really fun knit. Have I got it here? Yeah. So that's Morning there. And this is Storm Cloud here, but on the Steadfast base. Steadfast is a 4-ply yarn, so you get a real round yarn. It's really, really great for cables, and Resolute is really, really great for colour work, but they're both designed to cover all your needs. I've tried to design the yarn that covers everything. For me anyway, it's everything I want it to be. Obviously it's non-superwash because it's a proper woolly yarn rather than a silky smooth one. Then I keep wanting to call this Monstrous. I knit this jumper while I was watching Wednesday on Netflix, which is a fantastic show and I really, really loved it. I recommend you watch it if you haven't already. And so I always think of it as my Wednesday jumper as well, because she likes to wear black all the time. So this is a top down fingering weight jumper. You knit the yoke, you knit it all forward, like front side out, so there's quite a bit of purling on the yoke, but obviously once you get to the body it's all smooth sailing from there. It's got a deep what's that I'm trying to call it, a deep ribbing with a twisted rib, which is really beautiful, and it has the same motif on the bottom of each sleeve and that same motif on the bottom of the body here. Don't know whether you can see that. So it's a really nice sort of echo of the yoke throughout the rest of the jumper. This was super popular at Unravel. It really caught people's eye. I think also it's really wearable because it's just the one colour. super knittable as well, but yeah, it's got that kind of detail and coolness to it. What's really nice is it's got this cool, I think it was a 3x1 collar, rib on the collar, and you actually do short row shaping. I don't know whether you can see into the neckband in that rib, then you do short row shaping below it, then you knit the yoke, and then you can do additional short row shaping before you split for the sleeves. And so it really brings the back of the collar up, and it gives it this kind of height here, which I think looks really special, really, really beautiful. So I was very fortunate to work with Rachel a couple of times on those. She's actually just designed and about to release another pattern, which is a raglan construction, and it's got colour work just in the yoke, and then it's a single colour for the rest of it, and it's a small pattern repeat so that you don't have the larger gaps in, you know, like 8 or 10 stitches between in one colour before you change. So I'm going to knit that because she's just designed it, and she's used mine and I think like 7 other yarn companies. She's used a little bit of each of their yarns because I think the colourwork yoke uses maybe 3 or 4 colours, so I'm going to maybe try that as well. But at the moment I'm just obsessed with this, the Mild Metropolis. I am about to join for the sleeves. I'm going to mimic the same colour fade on the sleeves. I went through from you pick up for the collar after you've knit the whole of the body. So I picked up with the Natural and Storm Cloud, and then I swapped out Storm Cloud and added in a new pink I've got called Morgul, which is not actually on the website yet. It will be after East Anglia. So we'll start with Natural and Storm Cloud, then it goes through from Storm Cloud and Moon Dancer, and this really gorgeous chalky green I've got. This, is it a green, is it a blue, is it, you know, a warm gold? It's really exactly what I'd been looking for, this green. That's called Dreamfire, another one of the dragons from House of the Dragons. Then it goes through to the alethiometer from, I've done a His Dark Materials series. Then from the alethiometer it's got Morgul, that light pink, it's a kind of rosy pink. Then through into Melees, which if you look behind me is the pinky colour at the top there, the warm pinky. Then through to, what came after that? Melees. It's the bubblegum pink, which isn't up there. Can't recall what it's called. Or is that? Oh yeah. Anyway, then it goes through into Caraxis, which is the light blue, which I used in my Northdale for the collar. Then into Lyra, which is this one here. Then through to Mrs. Coulter. This just goes with everything, particularly fantastic with Sintra, a deep gold colour, which is on the right hand side there. So through Lyra, Mrs. Coulter, then onto Heathcliff here. Oh, a bit of Monstrous, which I'm wearing, a bit of Heathcliff, which was my John Arbon limited edition colourway that was uber popular. And then finally into Care Moran, which is this like deep mossy forest green, black grey. So that's it upside down so you can see all the colours. Shall I just do a slow? So yeah, I'm going to mimic very similar on the sleeves with the colour choices. And I feel like when I was thinking that I wanted one of these, I thought I would just wear it on weekends or work from home days. Then when I started knitting it, I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. I need to wear it everywhere, all of the time. And actually, with this shirt that I just got, I tried it on last night with this shirt, and I think it would totally be suitable for the office. But maybe that's just me. Who cares? If I like it, then I think it'll look cool with like smart trousers and boots and a high collar and, you know, your hair done and some nice earrings. So I'm totally in love with this. I feel like now I've knit something in this heavier, chunky weight or equivalent chunky weight, I feel like I could knit a million of these. It's such a great pattern as well, super easy. It's like one double page and that's it. And Tanis from Tanis Fibre Arts really likes you to be able to customize her patterns and get as much as you can from one pattern and change it in as many ways. So the actual pattern is like a tall roll neck, a polo neck that folds over, and she really encourages you to do something completely different. So I was actually thinking, I don't know whether I'm completely bonkers, whether the chest circumferences and things on a man would be completely different, but James, my husband, has been asking me to knit him a jumper in Telling yarn, and I have been putting it off because he's broad-shouldered, he's 6'1", and it just takes me forever. I have like a million things I want to be knitting that I can wear, that I can have at shows, that inspire lots of the people that come to the shows to see me in, and I just felt like maybe it wouldn't be as useful for me to spend the equivalent of 2 jumpers for me knitting him something. But I think, because, so I haven't said this, it is Thursday morning, I cast this on Friday morning, this Friday just gone, so I'm going to be halfway down the first sleeve in a week. That is insane for somebody that knits almost all fingering weight yarn. So I think I'm going to do James one of these. We were just saying that if we find all these kind of moody, darker, more saturated colours, that he'd be super happy with one that does a gradient through that. And then I think I'd probably do myself another one, but with all of these light colours at the top and then going through to the darker colours. And then I'll probably make like a million more because they're so cool. I love it. So I think that's most of what has been going on. As I say, I'm at East Anglia Yarn Festival next weekend. I have more of the new display, the pop-up shop as I'm calling it, being delivered next week. So I got these really cool pegboards made by a company in Rill in Wales by a husband and wife team, and I got 6 pegboards made, and this cool like pop-up till unit that's on wheels, and it has shelves underneath, and it means you can kind of have your you know, your drink and your money and your notes and all the things that people need, the tote bags. Oh, I've got the tote bags here, let me show you those as well. You can have them all to hand without being like out and having to open up things to get to them. So I made these cool tote bags for Unravel as well, so that anybody that bought a sweaters quantity got a bag for free. 3 skeins or more. Got one of these, and it's got inspiration from, this is the subtle knife from His Dark Materials, this is the alethiometer, one of the zeppelins from His Dark Materials. This is Matt Smith from House of the Dragon, playing the best character I think in the whole thing. Down here we've got the Witcher, Geralt. Then we've got the traditional Telling Yarns logo, and then a few little quotes. So I've got kindred spirits are not so scarce as I used to think. It's splendid to find out there are so many. That's a quote from Anne of Green Gables. A reader lives 1,000 lives. That's a quote from George R.R. Martin. Dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did. It's a quote from House of the Dragon. So yeah, I had these hanging on the pegboards, I had the till unit, and now I've got, what I realised is I can only really put 2 skeins of yarn on each peg, otherwise the boards become too heavy and kind of lean slightly, because they're made out of a lightweight wood, so that they're easy for me to get in and out, because I tend to do most of these shows by myself. So I've got the couple making up 4 more pegboards and these 2 display tables that they already make for shows that are pop-up, that are like 1 metre long and 50 centimetres wide with shelves on them. So what I'm going to do is put all the rest of the yarn on these shelves, so you can still see it, but I don't have to put it on the pegboards. And then I'm going to have these pegboards with like the sign and maybe like a part knit jumper, and you know, things like kind of make it try and feel like a studio visit. Another exciting thing on the horizon is that we're getting a room put in just out the front of the house here, which is going to, over time, become a yarn studio. And I will then be able to do, I think probably what I would do is by appointment only bookings. So I will have maybe 3 days a week where anybody that wants to come can make an appointment to come for an hour or two and join, have a look at all the yarn and stuff, because just being able to see the yarn in person is, it can be so different than following, you know, seeing it on the website or following it on Instagram and things like that. So I think I'm going to eventually do that by appointment only sessions, and then also do like an open day on a weekend once a month that's always on the same weekend or something, and then do a knit night probably, or a knit lunch or something like that once a month as well. So that is a sort of long-term project, but something I'm super excited about, and we are literally getting it installed in the next month or two. So it is something that's like, the work is going on now, but actually being able to open it and do it regularly is something that will come as I step back from working in London quite as much as I am now. So that will be in a few years' time. So yeah, I have on that same vein, so I'm going to be in person in Norwich at East Anglia Yarn Festival next weekend, if you're around that kind of area and fancy coming along. I'm also going, I'm very lucky to have been invited to John Arbon's mill open weekend, which is in June. I think it's like the 14th, 15th, something like that. So I'll be vending there, and I'm actually doing a talk. So I did say to Sonia that I'm not sure I've got anything to teach, so it can't really be a workshop. So her and Lauren were keen to have me do something, because I think the yarn that I'm doing is maybe a bit different from what other people are doing with their wool. And obviously I've got it, the custom spin is the only wool I'm offering now as well, the only yarn base I'm offering. So I think it's sort of ended up that I'm becoming a bit of an ambassador for them. So they wanted to do a talk with me, so I've agreed in the end to do a bit of a kind of open panel discussion thing, where we just maybe chat, interview style, in a relaxed way. So that will be both funny, nerve-wracking and new, so I look forward / worry about that. But I'm really excited about the weekend as a whole though. I feel like attending that mill open weekend and vending at it, only a few people get to go, and I feel like that was something that would have been on my bucket, that was on my bucket list fairly early on in the development of Telling Yarns, that would be a moment where I really felt like Telling Yarns was here and we were on the map. So it's super cool to see this stuff actually coming to life and coming into fruition, and I'm trying to remember to recognise how cool that stuff is as well. I've also just been picked up by Beautiful Knitters in Pimlico in London, so there'll be a London stockist for me. That's my first London stockist, that's super exciting. And I have been contacted by the Knitting Loft in Canada, and hopefully over the coming weeks we'll be setting up a wholesale agreement with them as well. So that will be really exciting, because I really could do with having a presence in a few different places globally. The US, Canada, Europe and Australia are probably the main places at the moment that I could do with having some kind of presence, so that not everything has to come directly from me, although it can totally come from me. It just takes a little bit longer, and I can't control the customs as much as I would like to. So that will be a really exciting step in the right direction. And I met with a lady who runs a yarn store, a beautiful yarn store in I think it might have been Luxembourg or Switzerland, anyway, over in Europe, and hopefully in the future months we might look to do something as well. So it's all going in the right direction, and I just want to say a massive thank you to anybody who has bothered to watch this long, and I hope I brought you a little bit of iridescence on this snowy March. It's March, I'm not sure why it's snowing. Snowy March Thursday morning, and I wish you a wonderful weekend, And if you've got any questions or anything you would like to know more about, drop it in the comments below and I'll take a look before I film another video. Have a wonderful rest of the day and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye.